You know that feeling, right? It's like 2 a.m., you're just staring at the ceiling.
Oh, yeah, the classic
Hmm.
late-night doom-scrolling dread.
Right. Your mind is just racing about, a meeting tomorrow, or you're stressing over where your career is heading, or maybe just feeling this really heavy ambient anxiety about the state of the world.
Like a background hum of panic.
Exactly. And we have all been there. And usually we just brush it off as normal stress, right? Like, oh, that's just the cost of doing business as a functioning adult.
Yeah, you just drink some coffee and push through.
Right. But what if it's not? What if that feeling of anxiety isn't just some biological glitch, but a fundamental, profound disconnect from the actual reality of the universe?
Yeah. I mean, that is a staggering reframe.
It really is.
We are so conditioned to treat fear as just, as a psychological nuisance,
Hmm.
something you manage with deep breathing or downloading some new habit tracking app.
Guilty as charged.
Right. But the text we are diving into today suggests something entirely different. It posits that fear is actually a symptom of a much deeper, almost cosmic misalignment.
And that is exactly the mission of our deep dive today. We are looking at a really fascinating, philosophically dense essay from 2018. It's by an author named Zhou Feng, and it's titled Fear Keeps Us Away from the Truth.
And it does not pull any punches.
No, it does not. And, our goal here isn't to necessarily agree or disagree with it, but just to explore this piece entirely on its own terms, to unpack the logic of these ideas. So, okay, let's unpack this. What's the blueprint?
Well, first, we're going to look at the sheer biological reality of fear. How this essay differentiates between, a healthy survival instinct and what it calls an illness of the imagination.
Interesting.
Yeah. Then we will explore how this text positions fear as an absolute barrier to universal truths. And finally, we'll get into the author's honestly, deeply challenging, uncompromising method for achieving ultimate fearlessness, which involves taking a very hard look at our own actions.
Okay, so let's start right at the physical level. Because Yufeng doesn't just treat fear as this airy, abstract concept. The essay grounds us immediately by citing a literal clinical definition.
Right, from the Baidu Encyclopedia.
Yeah, exactly. It defines fear as this intensely depressing emotional experience that hits you when you're facing a dangerous situation and you desperately want to escape, but you find yourself completely powerless.
And the specific physical symptoms listed in the text are just incredibly visceral.
Oh, totally. We're talking rapid or irregular heartbeats, shortness of breath, massive blood pressure spikes.
Pale face, trembling lips, cold sweats.
Yeah, and that sudden, terrifying weakness in your limbs, it is literally a full system override. But beyond just the physical dysfunction, the text points out that fear causes massive psychological obstacles too.
Right. It paralyzes your perception, your memory, and your judgment.
Huh.
You entirely lose the capacity to analyze what is right in front of you.
Which completely shuts down your higher cognitive functions. But okay, I have to push back here. Because evolution literally wired us to anticipate danger so we don't die.
Right. The survival mechanism.
Yeah. If fear is this deeply ingrained natural biological response, something that kept our ancestors from getting eaten, pathologizing that as a mental illness feels incredibly extreme. How does the author actually justify making fear the villain?
So that is the crucial pivot in Shuofeng's argument.
Yeah.
And it relies on a very sharp distinction regarding time and reality.
Okay.
If you're faced with a sudden, immediate crisis, like a literal predator in the room, or a car violently swerving into your lane producing fear, is completely normal and functional.
Sure, that makes total sense.
But the problem, according to the essay, arises when the risk or the crisis hasn't actually arrived.
Oh, I see.
When you are sitting comfortably in a safe room, fantasizing about a future danger, and generating that exact same intense, paralyzing fear response over an illusion. The text argues that this kind of imagined fear isn't a survival instinct at all. It's an abnormality. It is explicitly categorized here as a mental illness because you are reacting to something that just does not exist.
That distinction makes so much sense. It really reminds me of installing a state-of-the-art home alarm system. You put up all the sensors, the cameras, the incredibly loud siren.
Right, the whole setup.
Now, if someone actually kicks down your front door and the alarm goes off, that's brilliant. The system is working exactly as it should to protect you.
Obviously.
But if that alarm system is just constantly blaring at 120 decibels because it is imagining that a burglar might show up next Tuesday, the house becomes completely unlivable. You can't sleep. You can't think.
Precisely. And that unlivable mental state is what the author is targeting. Because if this imagined fear is constantly tripping our mental alarm system, what exactly are we feeling to protect?
Right.
Shuai argues the cost is much higher than, say, high blood pressure or a sleepless night. If we are consumed by illusions, we are actually blinding ourselves to reality itself.
Yeah. Let's look at how he defines that reality then. Because Wei Feng writes this definitive line, quote, "The closer to the truth, the farther away from fear." And he doesn't leave truth as some vague, poetic concept either.
No, not at all.
In this text, truth is explicitly, fundamentally defined as the Tao.
And the Tao is defined here with just massive, staggering scope. The text explains that the Tao is the consciousness of the creator of everything.
Literally
Every single phenomenon in the entire universe. It is the absolute synthesis of all universal laws and principles, the underlying logic of existence. And what's fascinating here is the absolute zero-sum binary the author sets up.
Right. There is absolutely no middle ground in this text.
None whatsoever. Suething argues that a person with absolutely no fear is a person who has become completely one with the truth, one with the Tao.
And on the flip side.
On the exact flip side, a fearful person is someone who is one with falsehoods, with evil, and with ugliness.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. And I have to pause here because this is a really heavy claim.
It is.
If we think of the Tao as, like, the ultimate operating system of the universe, I want to push back on behalf of anyone listening who might just be a naturally anxious person.
Sure.
Are we really saying, according to this text, that simply feeling afraid about a job interview or a medical test means someone is fundamentally misunderstanding how the universe works? Like, are they really aligned with evil just because they're anxious?
In the strict logic of Shuofeng's framework, yes.
Oh.
Unequivocally.
Wow.
The argument goes like this. If the Tao is the perfect synthesis of all universal laws, it means the universe is functioning exactly as it should at all times.
Okay.
So if you have fear in your heart, it proves you do not trust or understand that perfection. You literally believe something can go wrong outside of the Tao's design.
Oh, I see.
Therefore, your constant fear is the literal evidence of your ignorance of how the universe operates. You are fundamentally distrusting the code of the operating system.
Man. Okay, so if this internal state of fear proves we are separated from the operating system of the universe, the text then scales this idea up significantly, right?
Yeah, it claims that this internal error actually dictates our external reality. It creates what we could call a geography of fear.
A geography of fear. I like that.
Shuifeng introduces this concept of the realms of life. And the rule is geometrically simple. The lower the realm of life, the more fear exists. The higher the realm of life, the less fear there is.
And the imagery used in the text to describe this is incredibly striking. It states, plain and simple, hell is full of fear, heaven is full of joy.
And to deepen that context, the author brings in a very specific ancient reference to back this up.
The sutra of attaining the state of immortality, right?
Exactly. This sutra describes what it calls the 8 without realms. These are essentially the prerequisites, the mandatory states of being for attaining immortality.
Okay.
And one of those mandatory states is being without fear.
Let's unpack the mechanism there because it sounds almost like a magic spell if you just read it on the surface.
Yeah.
Why would immortality require fearlessness?
It comes down to what fear represents at its core. Fear implies vulnerability. It implies you are desperately clinging to a temporary mortal state.
Like your physical body or your possessions.
Exactly, your ego. If you truly understand the eternal Tao, you recognize there is nothing permanent to lose. Therefore, you cannot achieve a state of immortality if you are still terrified of losing mortal things.
The logic is really rigid.
Very. If you still possess fear, you simply haven't transcended the mortal realm. You haven't attained immortality.
Which is such a fascinating, almost diagnostic way to measure your own life. Like, for you listening right now, the text essentially invites you to do an environmental audit.
Look closely at your surroundings.
Yeah, look at your workplace, your relationships, your community. If your environment is absolutely saturated with fear, if people are terrified of the boss, terrified of losing status, terrified of the future, Shuofeng argues that this environment is fundamentally degraded. It is essentially hell.
But if you find yourself in an environment with very little fear, it's ideal. It's almost indistinguishable from paradise.
So the amount of fear we harbor and surround ourselves with literally dictates the coordinates of our existence.
The stakes couldn't possibly be higher. This imagined fear is pulling us toward hell, separating us from the Tao, preventing immortality, and literally making us physically ill.
So what does this all mean? If this imagined fear is so incredibly destructive, Why do we generate it? What is triggering this mental alarm system to go off when there is no actual burglar kicking down the door?
This is where Swoofeng initiates what I can only describe as a rapid-fire moral inventory.
Yeah, it gets intense here.
Very. The author starts asking very pointed, deeply personal questions. If we haven't done anything that hurts the world, why should we fear?
Right. If we haven't done things stealthily or illegally or hindered other people from living their lives,
No.
why are we afraid?
The answer the text gives is brutal. It says we fear because we have ghosts in our hearts.
Ghosts in our hearts, which basically means we are hiding something. We are out of alignment.
And the essay doesn't just leave it at ghosts. It lists the exact specific reasons for these internal hauntings.
Give us the list.
It says we fear because we possess too much. We have too strong a desire for fame and fortune. Our ambition is oversized.
Wow.
We have heavy selfishness, too much sin, and too little merit. We are too deeply entangled with secular ties. And perhaps the most piercing line of the entire essay, we fear because we gain things we shouldn't gain.
I really want to focus on that phrase, possessing too much, because it's like carrying around a massively heavy backpack that's just full of stolen items.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
You know, you're walking down the street, and every time you see a police officer or someone just looks at you a little too long, your heart rate spikes. You get the cold sweats.
But it's not because there's an immediate physical danger.
Exactly. It's because you are terrified of being caught.
Right. There is this immense energetic friction to holding on to things that don't belong to you.
Yes. The fear is the actual weight of the stolen goods. It takes an immense amount of metabolic and psychological energy to hoard wealth, to maintain a fabricated image, or manage outsized ambitions.
You know, deep down, that you are hoarding energy that doesn't belong to you.
You are waiting for the universe to come collect its debt. It's almost like an imposter syndrome of the soul.
That is a perfect way to synthesize it. The anxiety isn't random. It's the friction between your selfish actions and the natural order of things. You inherently know you are out of balance.
Okay, so if our own selfish actions, our hoarding of energy, our out-of-control ambitions are causing this debilitating fear, how do we fix it? How do we realign with the universe to get rid of these ghosts?
The text provides a very clear mechanistic solution.
Mhm.
It says we need to deeply understand and internalize the three connotations of Tao.
These act as the functional laws of the universe.
Exactly. If we can truly comprehend how these laws work, the fear has nowhere to take root.
Okay, let's break those three laws down because they act as the core spiritual physics of how Wu Feng believes the universe operates.
Right. Law number one is cause and effect.
The text uses the phrases, as a man sows, so shall he reap, and good will be rewarded with good, and evil with evil.
And it adds this crucial caveat. If the reward or punishment hasn't happened yet, it's simply because the time hasn't come.
So it's inevitable.
It's important to note how absolute that timeline is in the author's mind. We often feel anxiety because we think someone got away with something, or we think we haven't been rewarded for our hard work.
Right, that feeling of unfairness.
But this law dictates that the delay does not mean the system is broken. The cause will always result in the effect.
Law number 2 is about the balance of energy. The essay states that the sum of the positive and negative energies of the universe is always zero.
Always zero.
Which means that what you pay out into the world and what you receive back are mathematically equal over time.
Think of it like thermodynamics. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred.
Okay.
If you act selfishly and take more than you need, be it fame, fortune, resources, you are creating a deficit somewhere else in the system.
Because the universe must balance to zero.
Exactly. So it will eventually draw that energy back from you.
Right.
And that impending energetic correction is what you feel is fear. When you stop hoarding, you stop fearing the correction.
Man, that's heavy. And law number 3 is universal fairness. Everything, every phenomenon, every individual, and even massive governments runs within the Tao.
Yeah, the Tao is perfectly fair.
The text says, the greatest creator judges right and wrong, the Tao assesses our merits and faults, and what should come will absolutely come. What should go will go.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see how deeply comforting these rules are actually meant to be.
Comforting.
Yeah. If you truly, in your bones, believe that the math of the universe always balances out perfectly and fairly, the need to feel anxious completely evaporates.
Oh, I see what you mean.
If you know gravity works, you don't spend your day terrified that you might suddenly float away into space.
Yeah.
Shuofeng's arguing the Tao works exactly the same way. You don't need to stress about the future because the system is flawlessly self-correcting.
But I have to stop here. Because there is a massive flip side to this comforting concept of universal fairness.
You go for it.
If the universe is perfectly fair and everything balances out to zero and everyone gets exactly what they reap, then who is to blame when things go horribly wrong in your life?
And here we arrive at what is arguably Swifeng's harshest, most direct truth in the entire essay.
Brace yourselves.
The author says, if you understand these 3 laws of the Tao and you still have fear, it means you have done too many bad things.
Yeah.
It is unreasonable for you not to be afraid. In fact, you deserve to be afraid.
Ouch. The essay lays out the alternative to this fear, though. It lists specific virtues we are supposed to adhere to. Truth, goodness, beauty, love, faith, sincerity, diligence, and harmony.
Pretty solid list.
Yeah. It says if we have been giving selflessly, if we haven't harmed nature or society or other lives, if we haven't blasphemed God, Buddha, or our ancestors, and if we haven't been extravagant and wasteful, then we have absolutely zero reason to fear.
But the logical inverse is unavoidable. If you are experiencing fear, suffering, or punishment, the implication is that you are failing on those metrics.
And this is where I really struggle with this text. I just have to point out how incredibly challenging and honestly borderline offensive this worldview might be for a modern listener.
I completely agree.
We live in a culture that is highly aware of systemic issues, trauma, poverty, and all these external factors that cause anxiety and suffering entirely outside of an individual's control.
Right.
But Xufeng writes this incredible line. He says, if we are tortured and punished, the problem is never in external factors. It is entirely within ourselves.
It's uncompromising.
Therefore, fear is useless, and complaining and resentment are even more useless. He says explicitly, there are divinities watching over us. Everything is monitored. How does the author justify what sounds like extreme victim blaming?
It is a deeply uncomfortable concept.
Yeah.
And to understand it, we really have to look purely at the internal logic of his metaphysical framework.
Okay, unpack that for us.
Swefeng is operating from a perspective that completely rejects the concept of randomness or unearned suffering. In a universe governed by the absolute balance of the Tao, the concept of a victim of circumstance simply cannot exist.
Because the math always has to balance.
Exactly. Everything is a result of cause and effect, even if the origin of that cause isn't immediately visible to us. So, from his philosophical standpoint, blaming an external factor like the economy, an unfair boss, or bad luck is just a delusion. It's a refusal to see the larger energetic equation at play.
Wow. It demands a radical, almost terrifying level of personal accountability. It strips away every single excuse we use to comfort ourselves when things go wrong.
Yeah.
It's just you and the raw math of the universe.
Exactly. And the author's final conclusion summarizes the ultimate cost of refusing to take that accountability. Swefeng warns that people who hold on to fear people, who refuse to audit their moral lives, let go of their selfish attachments, and align with the Tao well, they sever their relationship with health, with joy, with freedom and happiness.
And
Ultimately, they sever their relationship with heaven itself.
Man. So, to bring this all together, we started this deep dive looking at fear as just a biological stress response. Rapid heartbeat, sweaty palms, the urge to run away.
The physical symptoms?
Right. But through the lens of Xufeng's essay, we've completely reimagined it. Fear isn't just a physical reaction or a psychological glitch. It's a metaphysical alarm bell.
It is the friction we feel when we are hoarding energy that doesn't belong to us.
Yes, it's signaling our profound disconnect from universal truth. So conquering fear, according to this framework, isn't about deep breathing or managing your calendar better. It's about radically auditing our morals.
Emptying that backpack.
Exactly. Confronting our selfishness, emptying that heavy backpack of stolen goods, and placing absolute unwavering trust in the mathematical fairness of the universe.
It requires a total paradigm shift. And there was a final thought here worth mulling over long after we wrap up this discussion.
Let's hear it.
We live in a modern world where entire industries, from the 24-hour news cycle to massive advertising algorithms, are fundamentally designed to keep you in a constant state of low-level fear about the future.
They actively monetize that imagined fear we talked about at the very beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They need you to be afraid, so you keep buying, clicking, and consuming.
Right.
So if Xufeng is right, and fear is the ultimate barrier to truth and freedom, then choosing to live ethically, choosing to let go of excess ambition, and actively trusting the universe isn't just some quiet, personal, spiritual practice.
What is it then?
It might actually be the most rebellious, defiant thing you can possibly do against the modern world.
Wow, what an incredible way to look at it, to rebel against the entire fear economy simply by trusting the Tao.
It's definitely something to chew on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Xu Feng's work. We hope you can carry this radical perspective into your week, and maybe, just maybe, you'll look at your own anxieties a little differently the next time that internal alarm bell rings. Catch you next time.